when I think back about the things I've gotten bitter about, it's been a lot of these forced changes. The forced changes of having to leave a church, forced changes of having to leave employment, forced changes of having to leave a friendship. And so for me, a lot of that gets back to, I always thought that was always going to be there. And I always thought that was always going to be a happy place. And I always thought that was going to be the same as it was yesterday. And I'm bitter because it's not like it was. It's not like I thought it was going to be. I've assumed permanence. And because I assumed that it would be the same today as it was yesterday, I'm now bitter at the changes in my circumstances.
Okay, so I have a question there because I would agree to an extent, but I think there is also such thing as a healthy boundary. When you go, my mom and dad, you always used to say, if you go to draw water from the same well, you're going to get the same kind of water, right?
True. Yeah.
So what is the difference in not assuming permanence and setting a healthy boundary to keep yourself from getting hurt again? You see what I'm asking there? Like, I think that's a fine line because true, people can change, circumstances can change, all those things can change, but we also don't want to put ourselves back into a situation that is toxic or not good for us. Right. Just because we don't want to assume permanence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to get back to me changing my own frame of reference.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess that's where I'm going with all of that, too, is that it comes back to me changing my perspective and my frame of reference. That, yes, getting into a healthy place, having healthy relationships, not letting the same thing happen to me that happened before is one step towards that becoming really healthy and dealing with that bitterness.
Yeah.
But if I stay stuck in that thought pattern, stuck in that assumption making, stuck in that place of anger, that's where that resentment starts to build up.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah, and I would say too, TK, because you kind of have spent some time and have some background in social work, so you would probably know this. But the older I get, maybe this is just me, and maybe it's just taken me a long time to understand this, but the older I get, the more I understand that no matter what the situation, you have to, at some point, unpack those emotions.
Yes.
Like, you got to unpack it all and then lay it all out there and go, okay, this is how I feel, this is why I feel this way, and get to the root of it before you can ever heal and move on. I wish I'd have known that like 30 years ago, because I think I would be a lot better off now, because if you don't unpack those emotions when the situation is fresh, if you're like, I can't do that right now, they'll come out some other way. Is that true? Or is that just me?
No, it is completely true. It's completely true when we don't address something. It's like if you don't clean a wound, it's just going to fester. It's just going to get worse. And I was thinking when you were talking about that, you used the word stuck. And I think that is also a red flag for bitterness, is if you are stuck. You're stuck in a situation. You're stuck with a particular feeling. You're stuck because you haven't unpacked it. Or I was thinking about a clogged drain.
Yeah.
You get too much hair down the drain or whatever, and then that drain is stuck. And the more water that goes in, it doesn't go down. It just piles up, up, and up. And so you just get that clogged drain, and that's bitterness to me. It's like you haven't unpacked it. You haven't unclogged it. Things can't process in a healthy way. It's just building up, and sooner or later, it's going to overflow.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you have to deal with the emotions. You have to unclog the drain. You have to unpack the suitcase of emotions in order to heal.
And I don't know if it's just me, because obviously I don't know what emotions you guys feel, but I find that I have not done a good job or been instructed to do that throughout my life, and I've rarely thought about the emotions I was feeling. Like,
they're scary. They're scary.
Well, yeah, but I felt the emotions.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I didn't feel emotions, but I'm saying I didn't really think about what was at the root cause of this. Why are my feelings hurt?
Yeah.
Why are, because whatever the case may be. But I've never been encouraged to do that until recently in my life. Maybe it's just because my counselor's tired of me struggling with the same things over and over. And he's like, you need to unpack that, right? But I feel like and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like in spiritual circles, we we totally discount our emotional health. Is that
there's a
fair?
a lot of emphasis on don't trust your feelings, don't
Which
give
is
into your
true.
feelings, which is true. And that's what makes it tricky. If it wasn't true, it wouldn't be tricky. But it's
Right.
tricky because you can't just live in your feelings, but yet you can't ignore your feelings either.
Right.
So we have to find the way to walk in between those two ditches of completely being in our feelings and completely avoiding our feelings, understanding our feelings, letting our feelings point us in the right direction, and then giving our feelings to God is a much better way of doing it than to err on either side of that.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about spiritual circles. It's like, we do know that we're sinful. We do know that we have this flesh part of us that wants what it wants. And so there's truth in don't give in to that. Don't just let that lead you. But God also gave us feelings. God also feels feelings. Jesus had feelings.
Sure.
And so therefore that they're not sinful.
Right.
We've just got to, as you said, figure out how to deal with them in a healthy way.
Yeah.
I've found that a lot of times if I'm not dealing with my feelings, the things that change are my behavior and how I want to treat somebody, and then how I then end up treating them. That I will end up, if I am really bitter with some sort of person, then what I want to do is talk about them behind their back. Or I want to be
punish them.
spiteful and angry, right? And that's not helpful to anybody. It certainly is not helpful to me. And I know that the times I've had to get over my bitterness, the thing that I have made it's been a decision for me to say, I don't want to feel this way anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to have these feelings, and I don't want to have these thoughts. And so, God, I'm going to give them to you. And that's where they're going to live. They're going to live there. I'm going to put them down at the foot of the cross, and I do not want to pick them back up again.